What's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? It is your girl, Miss Natalie B, and it is 6 o'clock. It's Friday, so you know exactly where you are. It's Free Your Mind Friday with the Healing Academy. And as always, y'all, I'm excited to have you here. I know y'all probably tired of me saying I'm excited because I'm always excited, but I am. And we have a very special show for you all today. We are talking about Black women, honey. So you know it's an anthem, okay? You know it's one you need to press play, record, go back, watch again, because it's that type of show. And I have a phenomenal woman on the line, a history maker herself on the line with me, and that is Miss Essence McDowell. So Essence, I'm gonna go ahead and bring you up, sis. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so happy to be live with you. You know, it's an honor. And I'm doing pretty good. Today was a balanced day.
Come on. Praise for the balance.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
when you get older, I just want to balance.
That's all. Peace and
Oh,
balance.
let me peace and balance. That is a real adult statement you just made.
I feel like a real adult these days.
Peace and balance. Well, I'm again super excited to have you on, sis, because I know we're gonna talk real talk. Now, Essence, I love talking to you because we always have the realest conversations and so much truth comes out. So I'm excited for the people to like bear witness to this now, because you know normally it's just me and you just talking on the low. Now
Sure.
we got an audience, so I'm so happy for people to bear witness to this deep conversation we're about to have on like one of the greatest topics to ever be had, which is on Black women, history, present, future.
Yeah.
Okay. So while everyone's coming on in, I would love if you could introduce yourself and tell everyone about who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Ooh, oh, that's always a difficult question. You would think that would be a question. It's always difficult. Yeah, so I'm Essence. I am the co-author of Lifting as They Climbed, Mapping a History of Black Women on Chicago's South Side. I'm a writer. I'm also the director of communications at the Social Justice Initiative. I'm an organizer, a Pan-Africanist, and a bibliophile. So holding a lot of different various things as far as my identity is concerned, but all of those. And I'm also just me, a Black woman trying to survive in this whole nation known as America.
Come on.
So far so good. It's going good.
Can you please let the people know what a bibliophile is?
Oh, behind me are all these books because I love books. Bibliophiles are people who just love books. They love reading. I think it varies. Some people just love the feel of books. They love to collect books. Some people just love the words and the reading and the writing. I'm all that. I think that
all encompassing.
Imagine a day like this where we would be trapped and we wouldn't be able to do all the things we could do. I always thought that all of the electricity would go out. I thought like all of our digital power would be like cut off. So I imagine I was preparing for that, always reading, always getting books and trying to learn as much as I could. This moment when I would only have books, it would just
right.
So
you got them. They're there for you.
Right, and it's just me and them in here. Like that's it.
And they look beautiful back there. They're a beautiful backdrop, but I know that the words that are in there are some strong ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have them divided by subjects, so they have all, I think, uplifted me and really helped me to grow on intellectual and personal levels. So I love books.
Hey, now, so we're gonna get into this book loving too, because we talking about Black women history. So I know you got some up there. Because can we just say, I want to start this off. Where's my book? Because I keep your book on my desk. And I know for all of the viewers that are out there, they've seen this book at least 17 times at this point, because almost every topic we come to, and this book right here, Lifting as They Climb. So that's another reason why I was so excited to get you on to dive a little deeper into that, because I'm like, I've shown this book to our viewers so many times. And everybody like, I gotta get that book. They in the comments like, I gotta get it. So I know we're gonna dive deep into that. But before we jump too far into the conversation, coined questions to start off the conversation for all of my guests that comes on for Your Mind Friday. You've seen Brown Sugar, yes, the movie?
Yes.
Okay. So it's my spin on that key question. When did you fall in love with hip hop? So when did you fall in love with history, specifically history on the amazing Black women?
Interesting. When did I fall in love? Well, I think that I have always loved like African-centered history. I've always loved Black history. I was raised 5%. So, raised under the nation of gods and earths. And I think my father, from a very young age, my father really emphasized an African-centered perspective on history and culture. And so I always felt like it was really powerful, like what we've created, what we built, how we were the original people on the planet, all these beautiful.
Come on.
I always felt like, wow, like this is amazing. And that kind of waned as I got into school, public school, and especially in high school, a lot of lies, a lot of white-centered, slavery-centered type teachings were happening, and I kind of felt a little more distant from history in those moments when I was in school. But full circle moment, coming back to specifically Black women's history and doing the research and working with Miriam to write Lifting as They Climbed really kind of put me back in the space of like recognizing the extreme power in the history that's all around us. So I think I can't say that it's been a smooth sailing. I always felt one particular way about history or Black women's history in particular, but over time, I just understand how important it is and why, even in the moments where it felt fraught, why they were erasing history, why they were giving a whitewashed version. Like it was clear to me like what was happening, and I didn't need to feel so frustrated because it was like an agenda, right? Like it's intentional. But once I kind of moved past that, and really, the more I read, the more I learn. There's still so much to learn. The more empowered I feel. So it's just been a lifelong relationship, with this ebbs and flows.
And that's something I don't want people to miss. For all of the viewers out there, don't think that it's just like an instantaneous moment where it's like, okay, this is a thing. No, that thing is a journey like life. It's going to be sometimes a roller coaster. Every journey is different. So I can wholeheartedly agree with that. And one point that really spoke to me in my life that you just stated was I fell in love with history after school. It was no time in school where I was just like, this is the ish. I need to get into it.
You went to public school?
Yes, public school. Very much so public school. Very low funded public schools here in Chicago. And I did have some amazing teachers, a few along the way. From I think the first one that really impacted me was in third grade. And we called her Mama Webb. Of this very public school. She was all types of Afrocentric, honey. And I think that's what really introduced me to it. And I was like, oh, okay, I like what she putting down. And then it went away again. Okay. And then I had actually a Hispanic teacher in high school, history teacher, and he would just be like, I put the book down. Look, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was another point where I was like, okay, I can get into this. And then it went away again. And then of course in college, unless you're taking a Black history course, it's not there. And then after that, just being involved in the community. And I'm like, hold on, I need to know more. And it was just a thirst that I could not quench. And I was like, I gotta know more. And that's what really led me down my path into history. So I was a latecomer as well. It was not a straight ride for me.
That's not even late. Like, you're still young. So you're early on in the process that, and now, you got your son and you can help him kind of experience that journey a little bit easier and a little sooner, So I think that's
the goal.
Okay.
That is the goal. And then that's what we're trying to do here at the Healing Academy in general, open a school where we are educating our babies from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. And who knows, we might bust through with a college one day. But really educating them on the foundations of who they are and showing those receipts along the way. I'm not just going to tell you, great, I'm going to show you all of these people that look like you, came from the
We back.
We back. Whole internet just went out. Had to work that thing out. My apologies, everyone. I still don't know what happened, but that's all right. We're gonna keep it pushing. Ain't nothing but the devil. You ain't finna stop this black woman greatness. You ain't finna do it. Not today, devil.
Right. We just back like we never left. It's okay.
Right. Not today, Satan. All right. But we were talking about your journey into history, and Black women history specifically. And for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome back. This is Free Your Mind Friday with the Healing Academy, Miss Natalie B and the lovely Miss Essence McDowell on the line with us today. And we are talking about Black
women's history. Let's get into it. I think Natalie is frozen again. This technology is unreliable a lot of times, has nothing to do with us, but we will take a pause, let her come back and resume. It's Friday, it's nothing urgent happening. It's still a pandemic. I think we all just, oh, you're back. See, I was just telling her, we're just taking a pause,
Just a slight pause. Yeah, my internet's been working perfect all day, and now it's just like glitch. But it's all right. Not today, devil. You're not going to stop this greatness, okay? You're not going to stop this greatness. So, Essence, you got to start it talking a little bit about your journey into history. And it kind of is like all of our journey, or most people's journey that at least I know.
It's okay. I was just talking about my journey with history and kind of how it started when I was young. I think I do have a unique situation as far as history being something that was taught to me from a very young age. I always had a very clear cultural identity that was connected to an understanding that our history stems way beyond Black history, way beyond, what we're taught in schools. And so, yeah, I had an earlier start, and I really appreciate that as something that's foundational to how I got here where I am today. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, sis. And you mentioned your book, Lifting as They Climbed, and I've been showing the viewers for so long this book, so I'm really happy to have you on here to talk a little bit more about it. Can you please tell me and the viewers about how this book came about and what it's about?
So, Lifting as They Climbed, every time I say it like that, I feel like it reminds me of the video, but it is about 48 Black women who helped to build the city and the nation. They are organizers, activists, scholars, artists. They have just contributed and built so much to make Chicago what it is today. And we map their lives throughout the book, but we also connect their lives to sites through the South Side of Chicago that exists. So we want to say that, they contributed to such a robust history. They built all of these institutions. They were part of these organizations. They founded these organizations, but they are also centered in Chicago's history and centered geographically in Chicago's South Side. And so there's so many locations that prior to this book I had walked past. I had just, I had literally been in the building where we situate Mahalia Jackson. And I was just like, I had no idea. I had no idea she lived there. I had no idea that this building had rich Black women's history. I was just there visiting a friend. And her and I would have loved to know at that time, that it was connected to such a powerful woman. And so this is what we're doing with the book. We're saying that, you can learn about these women through history, and you can also learn about them while walking through the neighborhoods on the South Side. And so the book is a self-guided tour where you read these short summaries of their lives, because it's not really a historical text in a traditional sense, right? It speaks to their lives, it speaks to their contributions, but it is just a little taste because we want people to go out and explore, and we want people to also, we want to pique their interest. We want them to go and say, like, I want to know more about you, because what we were able to capture is just a sliver of how much they were able to do during their lifetimes. And so, yeah, that's kind of what Lifting as They Climbed is as a text. But The process was it was a beautiful process. Now I think back to it, and I have nothing but such like love for the experience. Miriam called together a group of women back in 2017, I believe it was. And Miriam has been doing my co-author. I'm not sure if I introduced her properly. You probably heard of Miriam. She is a dynamic educator, scholar, writer, historian herself, and she had been doing work around Black women's histories for decades prior to me entering into the project. And so one day in October I'll never forget it because it's such a pivotal moment in my life. October of 2017, she called together a group of women and she said, I've been working on a project and I want to kind of, share it with community, get your feedback. And she started talking about Mary Jane Richardson Jones, who's a woman in the book connected to Jones College Prep, which is downtown. And Mary Jane Richardson Jones was an abolitionist, an early suffragette. She was just a dynamic woman in her time. She actually is in the 19th century, and she's one of the earliest women we have in the book. But when we think about early Chicago, like in the 1800s, that's like how it's only a couple hundred Black folks here at the time because it was before the Great Migration. And, I'm reiterating all the things she shared with me. And I was like, wait, what? Mary Jane Richardson Jones College Prep. I went to DePaul,
What'd you say?
The dorms for DePaul are across the street from Jones College Prep. And so I was like, had no idea. And that was just the beginning, that was just the beginning. In the end, that she wasn't necessarily talking about a book. She was just talking about this, I believe it was like a walking tour, these Black women's history she had been collecting. And after that meeting, her and I got together and were like, let's do this. Like it was an extreme moment in my life that I felt a yes, I have to work on this with her. Yes, this means so much to me. And together we decided to make it a book, guidebook, tour, and her skills and my skills fit together so beautifully. I'm a communications strategist, and so I was able to contribute. She had already done a lot of the research of the women. I was able to do some research as well. We put together a list of Black women we wanted to feature. I have design experience, so I designed the book, and then it just took off from there. And the project happened so quick. I had no idea that, what is this, like 4 years later, that the book would still be selling to people around the world. I think
the world. Like, yes.
Somebody ordered a book from Australia the other day, and I'm just like, where are these people?
Yes, girl.
Histories are, right? Like Australia want to know about Black women in Chicago all the way in Australia, so like
that's because the impact is so great. That's why I'm like, this is probably one of the most important topics that's not really being talked about. Like now more than ever, you're really starting to see a push for it. But Black women is like the roots, soil, foundation, seed, bud, tree of culture, period. Sure. And one thing I love about the book is that it is just that teaser. It's like that beginner guide, and you can fit so much in because it's set up that way where it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that either. And I love the fact that it's a walking tour. Yeah. I adore the fact that it's a walking tour because we do not know our roots. We do not know the history that we can literally be standing in at that moment. We're just going by our day to day, and we have no idea the magnitude of the spaces that we walk past, that we live next to, that we live in sometimes. And so this book for me is a huge shining light of like, look at this greatness right here in your own backyard. You don't have to hop on a plane or go do all of this other stuff. It's not downtown. It's right here on the south side of Chicago. Look at all of this greatness and look at it from the woman's perspective, because a lot of times when you're talking about Black history, civil rights movement, and a whole lot of other things, the women are left out of the conversation. It's very male dominated. So thank you, both of you, for creating this book and doing the work. And yes, there's people from all over the world need their hands on this book. Everybody needs their hands on this book. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's worthy of that because it's so many people and it's so many places that you just did not know. Like you said about Jones College Prep, you like, what? Girl, I was reading through that book like, get out of here.
Right, almost in every these are just the stories we were able to capture in this small guidebook. We wanted this to be accessible. We didn't want to make it really 100 pages, because it could be 100 pages. There's actually books that have been written about Black women that are much so in depth. We have such a rich legacy, especially in the city of Chicago. And so to think, like, if this is just 48, how many more are there on the west side, on the north side?
Yes,
everywhere.
Yes.
There's Black women's histories, you know? So
that part. Yeah. And when I teach my young people, I think this is another really important part. It's like, we do it as adults. We walk past these spaces we don't know. It'd be plaques on the ground. We be walking straight past. We're not paying attention. But for young people, like you said, I have a son now, so I get to pour into him. Like, if we work with young people and we pour into them what we learn later on in life, imagine where we could be if we can open up the eyes of the young people and say, just look in your backyard at the greatness from the people that come from where you come from and what they accomplished years ago. Yeah. And I used to say that all the time about the center, doing tours at the Southside Community Arts Center, which is one of the stops in the book. Dr. Burroughs holding it down, 2 locations right across the street from each other. I will always tell them, like, if these African-American artists could come together, collect dimes or whatever they had to do to make sure that this place is here for us 80 years later. They did this in 1940, 1930s in the middle of a Great Depression. What you telling me you can't do right now today in 2021 or back then, you know, whatever it was. And it's so encouraging and inspiring to get that information about Black women that look like you in your city from the same streets you walk. So again, thank the both of you for doing the work and putting that thing out there. And you didn't even know it was a market for it all over the world, but look at it, sis.
No idea. Had no idea.
That's because we all over the world, to be 100% honest.
100% we are, absolutely. And I think it's also a blueprint, a creative way in which we can insert history into our everyday lives. And so
absolutely,
I'm just the vessel. I'm just along for the ride. Like, I'm just so still to this day so honored to have worked with Miriam, to build a friendship with her, and just to be a part of these women's histories, because every day they inform me how I move through the world, and I hope that they help others to figure out, like, how we navigate in the most toughest moments, right? You mentioned the Great Depression. That reminds me of Elder Lucy Smith. She's one of the first women pastors ever to build her own church. And she not only used this church, you know, for religious purposes, but during the Great Migration, she used it as a space to provide food and clothing for folks in need. And so I just think, like, you know, in this moment of this pandemic, that there's so much opportunity for us to always be creating change. And we are still to this day. I know a group of women who have been doing a mutual aid project. I know, you know, like, there's just, it's still going on. So I just love to make those connections right now. Like, you talk about the Southside Community Arts Center, you bringing people there. I think you are part of the enlivening of that history there and inserting it into the present. So giving us what we need in this moment is what Black women have been doing all the way through, past, present, and future. I think that's just it's so necessary to remember that and be encouraged by that when it gets hard, because it's kind of rough out here. It's kind of rough these days. I never want to gloss over the fact that we are in a pandemic and that the way we're even operating in life is still, it's not okay. You know, us still pushing forward in this it's still just like productivity, still got to do this and that, when it's like, it's a moment of pause, and it's still hundreds and thousands of people who've lost their lives. And at some point we kind of got to reckon with that, you know? So it's a heavy time. It's a heavy time.
And that's not even considering the racial aspects and heats of what's going on. That's just looking at the pandemic.
Right.
Absolutely.
That actually, right?
What'd you say?
I said, who's being impacted the most?
Come on, if you look at the statistics. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of a joking thing, like, oh, Black people can't get it type of thing. But the numbers are with us.
Yeah.
The numbers are with us. And that actually brings me to why you name the episode what you named it, specifically bringing in the pandemic, specifically bringing in the past and the future as well. What made you want to name this episode?
Well, when you reached out to me, I was in a moment of like doing a lot of Black feminist research, and so I was just kind of immersed in this rich intellectual history that, you know, Black women have created through Black feminist scholarship, you know, and to say that there are all these intersecting oppressions that Black women experience, you know, racism, classism, sexism, it's overlapping. So this intersectionality, you know, Kimberly Crenshaw, give credit to her, but this intersection of all of these challenges that we face, what do we do about that, right? We created this lane for ourselves, these organizations throughout history. We created a lane of scholarship. We created all of these platforms through which we kind of explore that and acknowledge that. And so I was out. It's separate. It's not, you know, it's not totally separate, but it is a separate.
Right. It all intersects, as we said.
But I was in that moment, right? Like I was in that moment thinking about like, wow, like this is such a rich lineage, right? Like that we have been doing this work, this scholarship, this institution building across centuries. And when you said you wanted to talk about Black women's histories because it's Women's Histories Month, I thought, you know, how are we connecting that to a vision of the future? You know, after this pandemic is over, the lives that we lead and what happens and what we build to kind of resurrect some things that are inevitably going to be destroyed by this financial depression, by, you know, just by the new way of life. So I think, how are we still shaping the future as much as we have shaped the past and the histories of our communities? So I was thinking about all of that. So I was like, okay, so if we're going to talk about Black women's histories during Women's History Month, let's talk about the future. Let's put this in a really like interesting sense. That's why I love Afrofuturism, right? Like, how are we envisioning tomorrow? How are we envisioning 2020, you know, 8 and then 2038? How are we just going further and further with what we have already built and what we know is possible? So that's kind of why
I was hyped when you sent that. So instantly I was like, flyer. Like I was so hyped when I read that, because yes, I love looking at history. I love diving into it, and because for all of the reasons why I said the book was so important, it encourages us, it connects us to what they have done. But the other aspect that I feel like lacks a lot of times when we look at history is like, okay, how are we going to use this information to fuel what's next, to fuel the present, what we're doing right now, to make a better tomorrow? So I just really, when I read that title, girl, I was like, yes, bring it forth and speak on it. So what are some ways that you think we can take the information from your book, the information on Black women in general? Because like you said, there's so much more. It was a real specific lens on Black women on the South Side of Chicago, but women from Philly, New York, all over this country and all over the world, even all the way back to Africa and everywhere else, even Australia. It's Black women history everywhere. How can we take the history we learn and apply it to present day and the future? One thing that you mentioned before was that Great Depression piece, and how in the midst of these struggles like the pandemic and the Great Depression and all the other struggles that happened along the way, we make diamonds under that pressure. And I know that's one huge piece for me that I think about when I look at the history. If I can see how they did it back then, I'm like, okay, what can I do now? Because through that chaos, millionaires, billionaires, change is made.
I mean, I think that it's not even complex, that we have always just created what was needed, right? So a lot of times we're looking around in our communities and we see things that are missing. We see the resources that we are lacking. And in that is space for opportunity, right? Like that is space for us to build the food hub, which, the Healthy Food Hub used to be one of my favorite places to go on Saturdays on the South Side, and led by a Black woman,
Come on.
We are already able to do it, and we are doing it in so many ways that it is just like, what do you feel like we need? What do you see that is lacking? What is it that you can envision and imagine and create? And it doesn't necessarily have to be structural, right? You don't have to build the building. Like, what collective can you form, right? What arts projects can you start to make so that it somehow depicts your community in a way that's missing from mainstream media? Like, I think that we are just so inventive and creative, and that these historical stories are just the fodder for what is possible, right? Like, it is just like, these are just small examples of what you can do in the present. Because what they did back then, I mentioned Elder Lucy Madden Smith, right? She just used the institution she built and had access to then, make sure food and clothing was going out to the community, right? Like, and so someone could open their home to make sure that folks who are starving in this pandemic, when a lot of jobs have been cut, people are having employment struggles, like, they could just open their doors or grab some extra things from the grocery store for their neighbors, that it is not a complex project. It is very simple, and it's also very imaginative, and it's so many possibilities of things that we didn't even think about, So I hope that kind of gets to it. What do you think?
It does. To me, what you just said reminded me of like my favorite Dr. Burroughs quote. I'm gonna mention her a lot because she's my favorite. She's one of my favorites. She's just amazing. She's one of my favorites. But I am but one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. What I ought to do, I should do. What I should do, I will do. And that just made me think of that.
Slow it down and say it again, because I really like that word clearly.
Yes, I don't think it's verbatim. I might be mixing some stuff up, but for the most part, is I am but one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. What I ought to do, I should do. What I should do, I will do. And I love that, because that's how I live my life. Like, I create organizations and different things because if I feel that I want it and I'm seeking it and I can't find it, then I'm going to create it because someone else is seeking that as well. Right. Or when I do find it, I latch on and I help those organizations because it's necessary. But that works when everyone reclaims their power and the possibility of their purpose in the larger whole. And everyone's biggest throw out when it comes to actually creating change or doing something different or positive, or the problems that we have in the world is, oh, but I'm only one person. But you are one person. Reclaim your power. One person can do a lot, because look at all the one persons that have already changed the world that we lived in since the beginning of time. If it wasn't for that one person, good or bad, because sometimes it's one person that started up some nonsense.
Right.
That one person can make a difference. So reclaim your power as one person, because when you find your light and you shine it, other people are going to gravitate to that and shine theirs as well in whatever way they need to. It doesn't even have to be your same way. So that's what I thought about as you were speaking, because that's all it really is what is the problem that resonates with you the most, and then do what you can do to fix it. And I think that that's more powerful even than, trying to climb to the top of Mount Everest when you ain't never climbed a mountain before. I hope that made sense. If you ain't never climbed no mountain, how you gonna make it to the top of Everest? You better start with that hill, then that hill gonna get bigger until you can climb Mount Everest. Don't look at the whole picture. I used to tell my teens that. Don't look at the whole problem. Don't look at it as the biggest thing. Start with the most minute piece of that problem and then fix that, and then keep working your way up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we already have a lot of inherent skills, a lot of things that we are interested in, and that also can be a platform or a vehicle for the change. Like, I love the books. I love books all my life. I didn't necessarily know when I would create one or be a part of the creation of a book, but it was something so simple as the passion for pages and for the text and the covers and the thoughts, just following that love, following that desire, love. Even musicians, you love music and you care about Black people, try to infuse some of that into your music, you love art, you love painting and sculptures, all of that can serve a purpose to support something greater. So it doesn't even have to be daunting. It could just be, what do you love at your core? And not even, what do you like a lot? You know, like,
we don't even have to use the word love.
Like, what's because, you know, gather a couple people who like that a lot too. And then now it's you getting something moving. You know, I don't want to oversimplify it because it does take work and it does take, you know, so I don't want to put that out there. But I think if at the core of it, it is something you care about, and if at the core of it is something that you feel connected to or feel you're able to do, then that carries it so much further than you can even imagine, you know. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
When you have your heart in something, you're gonna do the work. And even when it feels like work, it still feels better than you doing something you don't want to do that you don't care about. Because it's gonna be work. But when your heart is in it, it hit different. You're gonna do that work. And sometimes you're gonna be frustrated, but you're gonna still do it because your heart is in it. Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes for when we think about historically the work that our ancestors and that even some of these living legends and greats had to endure, and the work they had to do, and the situations they had to live through. When I think about that, that's a part for history for me. When I think about what they had to endure and then the life that I live today, I'm gonna do the work. Because if they could do it, and when it was 12,000 times harder for them, I'm not gonna complain. I might get frustrated. I might feel lazy today, but I'm gonna do that work to keep that wheel moving. Similar as we were talking when we were doing the documentary At Their Feet. Like, the ancestors get the wheel rolling, and if we don't hop in and keep pushing, the wheel stops. Yeah. And they've already started it. We got to continue it. And we have to start by, I think, reclaiming our power of the one. We are one. And it's a lot of power that comes in that. We all have change within us, and we all have the ability to create change in the world. It's one little pebble that creates a plethora of ripples in the sea, right? And so I want to ask you now, speaking of some of those historical greats and living greats, who are some of your favorites? I know you didn't wrote a whole book about it, so it's like so many in your mind, but who are some of your favorite Black women throughout time, historically, and then some still living as well, that have just was like, yes, sis?
That's such a hard question.
I know. That's why I'm like, I know it's hard. I know it's probably like 15,000 in your mind.
Because there's so many of them that I want to uplift. Oh my gosh, you know, like I'll try not to say anyone that we already know, because I get a little frustrated when we choose.
We focus on like the same ones. It's so many.
I don't know. Living. It's Marimba Ani. Do you know who Marimba Ani? She writes a lot of African-centered text and thought. She is a scholar, a brilliant intellectual, and I think that I've felt so empowered by her analysis of African-centered thought. Like, I love Marimba Ani. She's still living. She's still here with us. Shout out to me. One of the scholars that I feel like, if I were to take a path down the academic lane, I've often grappled with that. Like, do I want to, go? I'm already situated in a university as director of communications, so I can say that. But when I think about, like, what would it mean to become a scholar around some of these ideas that I imagine so much are so important, and so Marimba is at the top there. But I feel like it's so hard for me to even just think. Like, I think that the women in the book, it give me an easy access to say, like, it depends on the area, the realm, like Addie Wyatt. If I wanted to say, like, who labor rights and civil rights activism, I go to her because she was extremely dynamic during the civil rights movement, doing that kind of work.
And what was the name?
Her name was Addie Wyatt.
Addie Wyatt.
Addie Wyatt, labor rights, or if I think about journalism, I actually entered my studies, like undergraduate and graduate studies, in the idea that I might become a journalist. I kind of shifted from that because the news it didn't feel like the best way for me to create any kind of change. For me personally. Ethel Payne, they call her the first lady of the Black press. She was a powerful, powerful, powerful journalist who worked with the Chicago Defender. She traveled around the nation. She's early on as a Black woman journalist. She really made some strides in that lane, in that area. So when I think about that, I think of her. Just recently, I was kind of going through Lifting as They Climbed for various reasons. I was having a conversation about another project, and I was going through the book and noticed like Nora Hope. So Nora Hope was the first Black woman to get her master's in music, and she just had she had a dynamic music career within music, but she used her home to found multiple like organizations, music organizations, the Chicago Music Association. She founded a magazine there, Music and Poetry. She also founded the National Association of Negro Musicians. And
crazy,
like first of all, you don't hear her name when you think about like women in music, but she did so much, and she just opened her home and said, I'm going to create these things that support musicians writ large, right? I'm going to create these things that from around the nation musicians can get in touch with, right? And so just so many, it just depends on the lane. It depends on the area I'm interested in that day, or like what's going on in the world, that I can kind of reach back into Black women's history and think like, who can I draw from today, right? Like who can push me forward through whatever challenge I'm experiencing. And it's literally like an encyclopedia of Black women's history that we can go through and pull from to kind of like navigate, So I don't have a favorite. I want to say that.
It's too many. It's so much awesomeness. Talking about all of historical Black women history from beginning of time. My favorite. All of it. Every piece of it is my favorite.
And they all are a part of the reason why I strive to be greater and more thoughtful and also more engaged with the community. Like they are the reason, because I saw all that they did with their one lifetime. I say this all the time when I'm talking about Lifting as They Climbed, that in one lifetime, you just like you're living here for a limited amount of years, right? Like in one lifetime, they show that anything is absolutely possible, and everything. You can build multiple things. You can build multiple organizations. You can just in your house, right? We're in the pandemic, your house. You can do it all in your house, and they did it before you even had to be in there because of a pandemic. So I try to just uplift as many as I can. I'm not super religious, but talking about Lucy Elder Smith is important. Because of what she did with her religious institution. It's because of what we're able to do with what we already have that I'm able to just say their names and just be like, and they did so much more, and they were part of so much more than I can even capture in this moment, So I hope that does justice, It
does. The sum up that I receive is that it's too great to just pick a few. Like it's honestly just the magnitude of Black woman history cannot be summed up within a few people. Yeah. It's too great. And what I really love about what you said, and it came out so naturally, and I'm like, yes, speak it, sis, is that like these are our ancestors. We can channel them up and use that energy. And I know everybody probably doesn't subscribe to that, but we got to know that energy cannot be destroyed, right? It can only be transferred. So that energy is still around us. We can channel up that energy and use that energy to push forward, to get through certain, like you said, depends on what realm I'm in that day. I might call a couple names, think about, and that's amazing because that's one thing, and this is leading to my next question, that is so powerful about really diving into the history and knowing these names and getting into the greatness, which is us, right? As knowing that you're directly attached to this and you can call forth that energy, right? So what are some of the reasons why you think people should really dive deep and tap into Black women history?
Yeah, I think we capture a lot of them today for inspiration, for blueprints. They built it off. A lot of we think sometimes we're in this new era and it's so different. It's actually not different. Like this one of the women we feature in the book, her name is Carrie Bullock. She was really received her nursing training from Providence. you live on the South Side, that's right on the South Side on
Come on,
51st.
whoa, whoa.
Right now.
All the history, which is Providence Hospital.
Right. It's so much. But, she used her nursing degree to support people in community. She like, it's so much to say, like, you just use what you have to support those around you. Like, you use what you already have access to, use what you're already doing, what you've already been trained in, what you already feel pulled to and called to. So I think research Black women's history, because you'll find yourself in a lot of it, whether you're male or female, right? You find so much of power in the place around you. If you in Chicago, like, literally look around and there is something around you that is connected to Black women's histories. Like, you walking down, what street are you walking down? Because I can tell if it's not that street, it's a couple streets around you that are connected to Black women's history. And that I would love for, my vision for, like, a beautiful future is that in New York, they do, Miriam did a tour in New York on Black women's history. So there's some areas that, I think it was Harlem. Yes, it was Harlem. She did a tour in Harlem of Black women's histories in Harlem, right? Like, in DC, I'm pretty sure that they could do exactly the same thing in California, Oakland, like, that is every place that there's so many Black women's histories that we could look up and just research and then pull from in every area of life, in every area of society, to kind of get excited about what's possible, or to just realize that, the history that mainstream America is teaching in these classrooms, that it is actually void of Black women's, like, stories and legacies. It's also void of a lot of Black history, period. Come on. African history. It's just really, really centered on this American, like, white male lens, and that's not what it really is. And so if any young people are feeling frustrated about their classes and the things that they're being taught, I really encourage you to just kind of branch out and step in and just think, like, whatever it is they told you that is most important, that there is something connected to Black history, connected to you, that you can explore, or even to our own family histories. We're talking about these things like they're a little bit separate from us, but in our own families, we have history that can be inspirational, that can be motivational, that can also just let you know who you are and who you're coming from, Absolutely. And so I encourage us to just dig a little bit, do a little digging, ask some questions. I went to my family reunion and learned a lot about the McDowell side of my family that I had no idea. My grandfather, John McDowell, passed away, but going to that family reunion, I was just like, wow, like, I'm actually, I'm really connected to the Black experience here in America, for sure. Like, my lineage goes, like, it's really, really connected. I was quite shocked, not shocked because I'm here, but just like, it's so amazing what you don't know when you don't ask. And I'm so glad that I was able to have that time to ask those questions, because you never know, it might be too late if you don't ask now. We lost so many people this year. I don't want to go on. We lost too many people in so many families. And if we don't get a chance to say, like, where tell me a little bit of your history, grandma. Tell me a little bit of your history, grandfather. Like, where are we coming from? Where were we what's my great-great-grandfather's history? Like, just asking some of those questions, I think can open a whole realm of possibilities that we're not aware of. So.
And you just spoke mad truth, sis. I love how it's as a whole, but then bringing it to that family aspect. Again, some of the things we spoke on when filming the documentary At Their Feet. One quote that you said that I love is you were saying that when an elder passes away, it's like a whole library burns down.
Yeah, I pulled that. No, I'm not.
Right.
I pulled that. But yeah.
But that was the first time I had ever thought of it like that. And it's so true. And the things we don't know about our own history is like, that should tell you how much we don't know about history at large, because we don't know about our own lineage. And one thing for me was my mom did her ancestry, and she's like 90-something% African. If I'm not mistaken, like 97 or something like that, over 90% African, right? So we were like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because you hear the stories, and you're like, we all mixed up in there, but like over 90%, like, we African. Like, that's what we are. And over 50% of that was Nigerian. So I'm like, oh, so we Nigerian. Okay, where is this coming from? And my mom is almost 60 years old, and she never knew this. She just did this maybe a year or so ago, and we've never knew an inkling of this. And so we just happened to ask our great uncle, who we've lived with our entire life. Like, he's been there my entire life. He's like in his 80s. Mm-hmm. And he happened to be here in Chicago at the time because he ended up moving back down south because that's where most of my family is from originally. And we were in the car, and she's mentioning it to him, and he just says it so leisurely, and he's like, "Oh, well, my daddy was 100% African." Sir, and this is her father's brother. Mm. So that means my great grandfather was 100% African. How are we supposed to know this if you don't tell us, sir?
How are we supposed to tell y'all if y'all don't ask?
We don't know to ask. That's the thing. It's that balance. It's like we everybody needs to do better. We need to start asking random questions. They need to just start telling random stories. Like, everybody just work together and get this information out. Because,
yeah.
What?
I think
so that inspired me to do. I'm like, I'm gonna do some ancestry, honey, because we got to figure this thing out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some questions list somewhere online that says, "What are the top questions you should ask your grandparents?"
Ask them all.
Generic. It might even be from a source that's not Black, but if we just took those, I'm sure those questions exist somewhere, and we all just printed them out and just went and go on and asked all our grandparents, And I mean, I'm not saying this from a position of I'm above it all, because I still have so many questions I need to ask my grandmother. So many questions I need to ask my grandmother. So many questions I didn't get to ask my grandfather. That's why I got so emotional when we were doing the documentary, because it was how I'm worried now. I'm getting up there. I'm in my 30s now. It's I can't wait for too long. I cannot wait for too long. And it's even elders in our community, Mama Saru, I did not know Mama Saru was organizing for Pan-Africanism and for the party on the continent. I did not know she just did so much. And it really took me by surprise, but it also really made me feel it's time to shift, right? It's time to shift, because if you're not connecting to the folks that are around you and the folks in your family, then you're going to miss out on some amazing stories, and you're going to miss out on something that's so vital that can help me. I don't even know, maybe not now, but later down the line at some point. I think we just got to explore, and it's not up to nobody else. It's not up to these classrooms, unfortunately. We wish we could send our children to school and they learn all they need to learn. It's just not that way. So I think it's just up to us to kind of just get curious. Just get curious. In any area of life that you could be curious about, is some Black history connected to that. Some African history connected to that. So how do we really tap in to what's already there? So much there. And I feel just like with this book, it was oh my gosh, so much more. We're expanding the book to include West Side women, just as a homage. We're also including some additional South Side women, but these are just scratching the surface. They're scratching the surface, and
it's so much more.
How much more? But I don't know. But if we just do a little bit, it just makes our life so much more robust in so many ways.
Yes. When I started diving deep into history, I feel like a whole another window of my life, not even a window, it was a whole door, a double door, just open for the visual, a double door just opened, and it was a whole new world on the other side. Oh, player, is that you? And it opens doors, it opens your mind. Like you said, on the possibilities, and it encourages you to let you know that you can do so much more. Because like you said, what they did in one lifetime, and some of them didn't have a long lifespan. And it's the things that they did, ain't nothing we can't do right now. If we decide to do it, do the research. And again, starting with what you love. If it's music, let it be music. If it's theater, let it be theater. If it's literary arts, let it be. Baby, you love you some books, you better look behind us.
Natalie.
Listen, honey, y'all better book swap. Okay, I'm not gonna play with y'all. Get whatever it is for you. There was a piano player. I believe she lives in Europe. I met her through the center. And she was doing her work. She's an African American pianist from Europe. And she was doing her work on Black women on the south side of Chicago. Through piano. She's doing that work. So like whatever it is, we have the keys and the resources to dive deeper, because now more than ever with the internet, you can find you can find this history. I think people who do know, though, our mission is to encourage the next generation to have that curiosity that you spoke of early, so that they can ask the questions. And then while we're teaching them, we need to be asking the questions to our elders. Like you said, before it's too late, because there's so much that we don't know. Like, what if my uncle wasn't here anymore and my mom did that ancestry and we was just sitting here like,
right.
I don't know. We just African out here, have no idea where or why. Okay.
I wish there should be some programs that allow people to do that for free, because it's kind of costly. So I don't want so many people to be able to find out what that connection is, without someone stealing their DNA, without it being hundreds of dollars,
Come on.
I can't wait till that becomes a little more accessible, because, that's a really important entry point into culture. So, yeah.
And we actually did a 2-part genealogy program in partnership with the Native American Museum and through the center at Southside Community Arts Center. And we had a genealogist there, Black man, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he was giving free ways that you can do it. A lot of libraries, I believe it's the Harold Washington Library, the one on 95th, if I'm not mistaken, the really big one they just remodeled on 95th. He said has a lot of historical records where you can go in and find a lot of your information. He also encouraged people to look back through obituaries, because in obituaries, they list who's left behind. So who their parents were, who their children were, who their siblings were. And start piecing things together that way for free. And me and my mom started going through some obituaries, and I learned some information about one of my uncles who was like really big here in Chicago. And he was like a real estate mogul. And one second, child. Hey, my baby, it's right there. Speaking on the youth, giving it back to the youth. But so he was a real estate mogul who was actually into it with like the original Mayor Daley and stuff, because he owned so much property here in Chicago, and he was trying to shut him down. And like, if you don't look into your history, you would miss a lot of that. And then not only would you miss a lot of that, you won't be able to pass it on to the future generations to root them, because that's kind of how we started off. Like, we got to get rooted in this information. So y'all get rooted.
Get rooted. I'm gonna go. I think it's Cameron Elementary School. I'm gonna do some talks there this month about Black women's history. Elementary school, I'm a little nervous because 7th and 8th graders might be a little tough, but I think that just trying to kind of enter the schools and provide support for teachers, because in this moment, a lot of teachers, they would appreciate any kind of like digital presentations and things, like not any kind, but digital presentations and support that can help bolster their curriculums. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to talk to them and be able to give them some alternative histories, because I noticed when I went into, I haven't been as much into elementary schools, but I was in high schools. And I mean, when I tell you, I was just like, how much do y'all know about Black history? And then how much do y'all know about Black women's history? And it scared me. It scared me so much. I was just like, white supremacy is winning in the educational system. Like, it's winning in the educational system. It is very evident in the ways in which our youth are learning about anything about themselves. Like, it's literally still, unless they have a dynamic social justice educator in their classroom, which is not always the case, because these
right.
have not been taught in a way that is more expansive, and inclusive in our history. But man, when they told me that they still learning Harriet and Rosa Parks, no, all due
and that's it.
Harriet and Rosa, all due respect, but I mean, there's
But that's it. That's all they're learning.
right. So many years. You don't have thousands of years. What are you talking like? Before whatever European,
And that's all you get. You get one from slavery and you get one from the civil rights movement.
it was just like, wow.
And now, hold on, they added one to Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama. We love you, Michelle. However,
we love you, Michelle.
Even Michelle,
but they got 3 now.
History goes far beyond her. Far reaches beyond even Harry. Right? Like, it's just so much that I thought, I haven't been in high school for like 20 years, something like that. And I couldn't believe they were still learning what I learned. Like the same thing. I looked in the history books they were getting, Natalie. It's the same thing. There has been
the thing is, that's what they're learning in high school, but that's the same thing they were learning in elementary school. There was no progression.
Yeah. And so that's that. I went to about 10 schools. Maybe I could say 10 schools 1 year, 5 schools, like a total. That's just these South Side, West Side schools. And I went to some on the North Side too. How is this possible? Like, how is this possible? This is scary to me, And so every time I think about that, I just be like, I'm making sure that I'm just trying to do everything I can, even if that means waking up at 8:00 in the morning to talk to some elementary school students, because I can't even understand how we let it get this bad. Like, and I can't say that it's us. Like, there's no blame and onus. Somehow the educational system has not evolved as fast as technology. Our smartphones are smarter than our textbooks for our children. Like, I don't know why.
Textbooks, especially from these underfunded communities, are still from like, I worked in the book room at my high school. Those books were darn as old as our parents were. Okay,
be careful, because the new textbooks, they're literally, it's revisionist history. They're making it even worse. They print these textbooks.
Talking about sharecroppers. Talking about slaves were migrant workers. Like, we came over here like, oh, they got jobs in America. What? And this is legally, they just printing this stuff. Like, I think it was a Texas woman who found that in her son's history book. Yeah. Migrant workers. What? And this is why it's so important that we learn our history, Black woman history, Black history, Black arts history, Black music history, again, whatever field that you're into, Black history, period, because it's not being taught. And it's not even a white American history. We still learning good old European history. I thought we broke away from them. I thought that was why y'all came over here. Like, we still, it's just flawed. And until I feel like we, as Black people on this continent, say enough is enough and start creating our own lanes, like you were saying, using our history to say, okay, what are we going to propel into the future? How are we going to shift so that we have a better and brighter future? That's one of the hugest places we're going to have to reach, is the school system. And I feel like that's the area that trickles into everything else: emotional maturity, success rates, opportunities, how they handle like, it trickles into a whole person's life. These schools have our children more than they're at home with their parents. And so if we are not tapping into that lane and catching them and giving them what they need, they will not be, or have a harder chance at being a productive citizen and being in this world, especially with a conscious effort on their people, their society, and their culture, and how to make it better, because that's not what they're being taught. So when we look at the world around us, we can't really be surprised, because look at what they're being taught and what they're not being taught.
Yeah, this is definitely some really serious systemic issues that we kind of got to dig into in order to really pivot. We're going to pivot, and it has a lot to do with what we're being taught, has a lot to do with what we imagine and envision for ourselves and for our future. And so I think, this Black women's history, tapping it into these legacies, in our neighborhoods. Like, we don't even have to go far. We could go on a little tour on a basic walk on a beautiful day to really absorb how much impact we've had in this city that is not credited. So I think there's large and small ways that we can kind of put a dent in this, because it's really, really bad. It's really bad. And I just didn't know, I didn't know. So this book was like an eye opener, and it also just hurt. It hurt so much. I was just like, what? And I
Our
wondered,
babies don't know.
teachers, I was like, well, what's wrong with those teachers? And we had workshops. Miriam and I, we did some workshops with teachers for lifting as they climbed. And it really is like we had math teachers in there trying to learn, you know what I'm saying? Trying to learn about Black history and how to infuse that into their subject. And that, to me, that was a moment that I recognized that teachers can't teach what they haven't been taught, right?
They don't know.
So
This has been the system for forever. Yeah. They don't know. That's why I said earlier, like, it's up to us that do know to make sure that we're passing it on to our peers, but also like really embedding it into these babies so that they grow up with it's second. Everything else is secondhand. Like, they know self first. They know history first. They know who they are first. Because that's the opposite is being done. And it's not even knowing who they are as second nature. They have no idea. So society and mainstream media and everything else is telling them who they should be. And we know who's controlling that as well as the school system. So it's going to end up bad for our future either way until we really stronghold that thing, put it in the headlock and be like, no, not today. not today, not tomorrow, not my babies. And again, that is one reason why the Healing Academy exists, so that we can have a platform where we can have people like you and other amazing people doing the work on, so we can have these conversations to intrigue some minds, and then start that school where we can really reach these babies and rooting them who they are, and then giving them a bomb education on top of that. And really working with the teachers as well, because another component is not just working with the young people, but working with their families, because we also know that they have to go home, right? You can't teach them all this amazingness at school and then they go home to a household that don't know or understand it. So working with those parents, but then also working with those teachers, like, we doing things a certain way here, and this is why, because we can't expect you again to know it as well as you need to teach it, because you weren't taught it. Yeah. Not in lower education as far as elementary school or higher education in college. Because for mainstream, our history isn't important enough, so we have to make it important to us. Yeah. Yep. And so we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this thing up, sis, because I know we could talk on this topic for forever, and it's going to roll into like 12 other topics. Right. And we're going to be in here preaching, okay? But my last question that I would love to ask, and for you to give to the people, because I make note sheets at the end of our episodes so we can post those and share to the people. So if you get nothing else from this show, take away these points. Even if you didn't watch the show, take away these points on how you can be better and whatever it is. So if you could give the people five points on why it's important to learn Black women's history. 5 points.
That's the last question.
That's the question.
Totally okay. I'm trying to think of how to organize that information in my head. Okay. So why restate the question so it gives me a little bit more time.
Got you. So why is it important? 5 reasons why it's important to dive into Black women's history.
Okay. I think that it's important because that Black women's history is also connected to like your community history. And so that is what we're doing with Lifting as They Climb, is that it's not just this historical project, this national project, but it is a project in and around Chicago. So I think that to make those ties, that is not distant from us. History, Black women's history specifically, is not something that is distant from us, that is so disconnected, that is far from where we are today, that it is embedded in where we are today. 2, I think much of what we have been talking about is the potential of Black history to inform the future. And so I think that when we're thinking about what's next, when we're thinking about how to grapple with some of the issues of today, that we can use Black women's history as the blueprint to navigate a new world, right? Like as a foundational element to help us create whatever new structures and visions that we have, whatever new systems that are necessary. I think that we've already kind of did some of that scaffolding. You'll find that through Black women's history that we've done a lot of that work, in medicine and health, in science, in all types, in the arts. Like there's so many ways that we've kind of injected ourselves as solutions to the problems that we're experiencing. Three, I think it supports a mental health. I know this is I'm follow me here. I'm not even gonna.
I got you. I'm with you.
Moments, I'm gonna be very honest and say that it has been extremely challenging to kind of just navigate life every day, and I don't, I'm honored and very supported in the way that I'm able to experience things these days, and all of the love that I have around community, but not everybody has that. And I think that history, reading Black women's history and reading these stories could really help you kind of shift your mindset. It can help be like and a push, a nudge, a light, to help kind of get out of whatever state that we're in, to push past some feelings of hopelessness that we all have. I don't think, people talk about enough what this has done to our mental states, like being in the house for the past year and some change now, what is it doing? And I think using Black women's history as a way to kind of figure out how to find some hope, to find something positive. And, and I think there are Black women throughout history and in the present that are doing dynamic work around mental health and the resources that we can have. So it's not, this is again, it's not a static thing, that it is something that we could use to help us wake up in the morning. That's three, right? Am I at three?
Yes. So I've actually broke it down. So I got you at 4. So I'm gonna replay what I have, and you let me know. This is your notes. But the first one that I actually have is inspiration and hope. So learning Black women history can give you inspiration and hope. The second one I have is it connects you to your community history. The third one that I have is use it as a blueprint. Use the history that you learn from Black women history as a blueprint to continue the work. And then the fourth one that I have is that it supports your mental health and self awareness and love.
Yes, I love how you broke that down. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I guess the last one being that why is it important for people? It feels like a simple question, but it also is a little, why is it important? I think because it exists. It's the same reason why that it's important that we study any other history in the world. Why American history is at the forefront is because within it there are extreme gems. That there's also a lot to be said about what we've endured and created. And so I think that it is just important because it is our history. It's not distant. Black women's history is our history. Whether you are a woman or not, in some ways, our lives are influenced and really impacted by the things that Black women have built, by the things that Black women have contributed to, by all of the organizations we've developed in some way, shape, or form in every area of society, science, math, art, activism, everything. We are tied. And so it is not some abstract, it is not some other thing. Black women's history is our history, all of our histories. And so if we had in a utopian society, we wouldn't just be learning about a male, patriarchal lens. We wouldn't be learning about history in this American whitewashed way. We wouldn't. We would learn about it in every way. And I'm not just, I'm not prioritizing Black women's history over others, but I'm saying that it is important because of these stories that we uplift and lifting as they climb, because of so many more that we'll never hear. It's important because for some reason they want to erase us. So why erase us? Once you read these stories, you're gonna find out. You'll find out why they want to privilege, a white lens over a Black woman's history. That I think that these stories will kind of give you some of those inklings. Like, we did all of that. I see why they're mad. I see why they're mad.
That part is really that part for me, sis. It's that part for me, sis. I had to think about that though. Like, as growing up, I had to think about and when you don't know your history and you're growing up, especially like that middle school, high school age, you're trying to figure out who you are as a person. You're trying to figure out what you like, what you don't like, and society at large around you. And I had to come to terms with everything that I am society hates. I say I'm Black. I'm a woman. I have Native American in my family, right? They ain't like them either, right? So I'm like, everything that I am, society tries to beat down. And that can go either way. Once you realize that and you don't have any backing behind that, it can go, okay, that means I'm less than, that means I'm this or that. But for me, it went, but why though? Why you try to sweep this under? Because people try to hide greatness when they want to seem greater. Yeah. They try to erase the facts when that's why they knocking noses off of Sphinx. Like
they keeping these Christopher Columbus statues up forever. Like what?
Like people wasn't already here. Okay, how you find someone people already living there, bro? Okay, all right. Like Africans wasn't traveling everywhere and just leaving people alone. Okay. Yeah, that's the more history we need to get into. But it's that part for me. And I think that's something that adults and young people need to realize. Like digging into our history is really showing you that we were never lesser. But why do they hate us so much? Why do they try to whitewash us so much? Why don't they talk about our stories? Because it shows us our greatness, and us knowing our greatness does not benefit them. It's that part for me.
Absolutely.
It's that part for me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna recap your 5 points.
Okay.
And then if they're right, let me know if you want me to tweak some. I got you. But then I would just like you to sum up and give any last words you would like to around the topic, and then tell us what you're working on and where we can find you. But let me sum up first. Okay, we got inspiration and hope being number 1. For diving into Black women's history. We got it ties us into our community history. We also have it's the blueprint for moving forward. We also have that it supports mental health, self-awareness, and self-love. And then the last one, it's ours. It's our history. And we need to know our history.
Absolutely.
Did I get you, sis?
Absolutely. That is exactly. And then that was a really challenging question that I probably would have had to write down. And, but like that, I think that's important.
You got it, sis. I even prefer being off the cuff because it's like, what comes to you first? What spirit bring up?
What spirit bring up? Natalie, I like structure.
I know. And I laugh at you all the time because I'm like, you gonna come with fire. Trust the fire that's within.
The opportunity to prepare is so much greater, so much greater. You had to dive a lot faster and they would have been more in depth. Like now, but those are excellent. That's the excellent 5. I think that for all these reasons and so many more, people have to know about Black women's history. Absolutely. Please do read as many books as humanly possible. That it even goes beyond Black history. There's this amazing book, Female Monarchs and Merchant Queens in Africa, that was written by Ndwando Achebe, Chinua Achebe's daughter. So it's such a great book, and it reminds me of our book in a sense that she's just highlighting a lot of the women leaders in African culture. And so it's not just this one book, but do visit liftingastheyclimb.com and do check out our book. We have a limited amount of this second printing that are left before we kind of go on a little bit of a hiatus before we publish the West Side version with Haymarket Books. And so we got some left, and I would love for all folks who are interested in Black women's history to just kind of get those last copies. You can find me at Inspiration S on Twitter. I'm not a Twitter person, but if someone wants to help me become a Twitter person, I need help. I just feel like I'm just not that much on Twitter, but I am on Facebook, Essence McDowell on Facebook, and I'm on IG, but that's my more little personal side, so I won't want to say.
Y'all go to Facebook.
It's created to write on Instagram, and so if you just type my name into Google, I think I might pop up. I love all of the community support, and I'm so grateful for you, Natalie. I think you and I remember walking into the Southside Community Arts Center when I was starting to do tours for the book, when outside was open, and you just being this really warm, amazing spirit when I walk in there, carrying the spirit of Margaret Burroughs with you and making sure that Margaret Burroughs' legacy really really lives on in so many dynamic ways. And so I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the community that has constantly uplifted me, the elders that are constantly supporting me on my journey. And I'm so appreciative to be on your podcast today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Healing Academy and everybody you're working with, because we need us. We are the absolute answer to so much. And I'm in support, and constantly anything you need, just let me know, because I'm there to support you. Like we are the answer, really. We really are. And so
yes, that part. I might put that at the bottom of the notes. We are the answer.
We are the answer.
Like we are the answer. Thank you, sis. Thank you. Thank you for creating this book. Thank you for all that you do, for speaking to the young people, for going into the schools, for your social justice work. You ain't dropped that, but I be following you on Facebook. I see you. I see you out there in these streets. Because it is necessary. What'd you say?
I said it's been a wild ride. I don't know how I got to this point, man. It's just amazing. I'm so grateful. Life is so generous. I feel like I get really redundant. People like Essence is always saying, I'm so grateful, I'm so honored. But I am. You never know what life.
And that's a good thing.
You never know. 4 years ago, I had no idea that Black Women's Histories would take my life up and never let it go,
Because it's there forever now, sis. You in a stronghold.
And that's what happens once you start reading Black Women's Histories. It never lets you go. It stays with you forever and ever and ever. It's a lifetime project of learning, of exploring us, So get into it. Let's all get into Black Women's History.
Yes.
Not just this month, not just next month, for the rest of our lives,
365. I've been saying that for forever, since Kwanzaa. I'm like, Kwanzaa, 365. Black history, 365. Black women's history, 365. Okay. Every day we need to be doing a little bit more. And one thing that I love, you said, Essence, you was like, it helps you get through the day. And I just thought about, like, what if you just make a pledge to yourself and just say, I'm going to wake up today, and every day I'm going to learn a little bit, even if it's just a little bit, about another Black woman, present, past, just every day, just a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And how much that can do for you. And then Black history in general. And then, I already know Kwanzaa, you better get your life together. All 7 of them principles will get you right, honey.
It's so beautiful. It's my favorite time of year. Absolutely. I know why people love Christmas so much, because that's how I feel about Kwanzaa. So,
man, for the culture. It's Christmas for the culture.
You got the packaged marketing on that one, Natalie.
For the culture. I am actually working on the Kwanzaa 365 pledge, working with Black-owned businesses and organizations and restaurants and products, and see like how we can make this a thing to make it easy for people to celebrate Kwanzaa 365, each one principle a couple months at a time, and just making it a part of their life. So that's the one thing that I'm working on right now, because it's so necessary. And it all ties back to diving into self, just like celebrating Black women's history is about diving into self. Because like you said, it's our history.
It's ours.
It's ours.
Let's reclaim the learning, all of the learning projects. Like, let's reclaim it and just as our own. And that really feels so good. It really shifts the way you're able to navigate in this world. So yes. And yes to Kwanzaa. I was thinking we could do every Kwanzaa principle. We can highlight a Black woman who aligns with the particular Kwanzaa principle. We could do that next year. Let's put it on our list for next year.
Black women Kwanzaa. Black women Kwanzaa. Yes, it's down. I'm writing it. It's down.
Okay. I love you so much, Ellie.
Love you. And thank you all for viewing. Make sure you guys follow Essence. Go find her. Be attached to this energy and this amazingness. Essence, your energy is amazing. Your wealth of knowledge is profound, and I just really appreciate you and all that you do, and your support to other organizations, and your mission of self. I don't know if you fully know what your mission of self is, but you own it, so and you aligned, and the ancestors are like, Ashe, Okay.
I feel it. I feel so supported, so very much so every day, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Doing my best to be in alignment, and I'm surrounded by dope Black women that make sure I stay that way, including my mama. Shout out to my mama.
Yes, moms.
Yes, Mom.
And moms is in what, New Jersey?
Jersey. That's where all of my family, pretty much. My brother, my sister, my mother, my nephew, my father, everybody's there. So,
Well, are you missing them right now?
I mean, this pandemic, got me here, and I'm just like, I haven't went home the whole pandemic, so I am missing my family a lot. That's why I
Girl,
brought up.
we gonna send you love. We gonna send them love.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Chicago has my Chicago family, and this conversation is it feels so good, and it has made this week even brighter. So I'm just the abundance is all around, man. It's all around. I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Yes. No worries. And man, y'all follow Essence though, for real. That's no joke. Get y'all a copy of this book before these copies are gone, because I done told you. I done continuously told you. Now Essence done told you. If y'all don't get those last copies of this book, it's on y'all. And that's all I got to say about it. I can't wait for the West Side, because I do not know much history on the West Side. So I am really, really excited to learn more about the West Side of Chicago, specifically about these Black women on the West Side of Chicago. I'm super excited about it. And then you all make sure that you go over, and if you're not already following the Healing Academy, go to our website, wehealheal.org. We are on YouTube. This will be posted to the YouTube page, as well as all of our other Free Your Mind Fridays are up there, as well as our Breathe Experience Tuesdays, also at 6 p.m. That's up there as well. Essence, I love you, girl. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Y'all go find Essence. Follow her. Get them books. Go to the website. Lifting as they climb. Go get it. Go get it. And the new one, too. Get both of them when it drops.
Thanks for watching, y'all.
See ya.